places. I'm a bit of a magpie, going for lots of different, oh, this would work really well here, and this would work really well here, and you'd work. I love that. That's the best part of my job. I get to listen to fascinating research and help broaden researchers thinking about the possibilities around public engagement and encourage them to think more in terms of engaged research as opposed to public engagement research. It's subtly different, but it basically means that public engagement is just a golden thread that runs all the way through your research. And I appreciate that some subjects you might think, how the hell do I do that? Come and talk to a public engagement professional and we can help you. We will hold your hands, we will show you how you can take those baby steps to take even the most esoteric of subjects and actually find an audience that wants to listen to it and wants to find out more about it. I'm now working in a team at St Andrews, so I've got mates, I've got friends. I have a public engagement professional as a boss, which makes a massive difference actually, because she knows my career path. She appreciates what I can offer the university and is actively championing me now. So yeah, so that's basically where I start undergraduate all the way to here. So I think I might stop there because I really do want to leave lots of space for questions and chat. And you can literally ask me absolutely anything. No silly questions. So I will stop sharing.
Very good. Thank you very much, Kirsty. First of all, I'm so sorry to hear that you had had bad experience during your PhDs. Actually, I think this is probably more common than some people might realize. So I really appreciate the honesty and that they share the bumps and that you show that the path is not always just clear, straight line from A to B. It's never like that.
It's not. And it's one of these things, I mean, I use it when I'm talking to primary school kids, for example, that your journey, so if you think about yourself, where you want to be, say at retirement, you know, when you finished working, you stopped and you're taking a break, what do you want to see behind you when you look back? And it may be a straight line. It may be quite a wiggly line. You may find yourself going backwards for a bit. But if you keep that ultimate goal in mind, even if that goal subtly shifts over time, it doesn't matter because every step you take will be moving you in the right direction towards that goal. And when I asked one little group of P4 kids about it, one of the little girls turned around and said, I want a home. And the other kids in the group started laughing. I was like, no, you know, that is a perfectly valid thing to aim for. So as long as every step you're taking, even if it's just a baby step, is getting you in the direction of where you want to go, then it's fine. You can't follow anyone else's journey because it's unique to them. You've got to make your own path.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have now been through this bumpy journey. If you know much more than you knew when you started the journey, is there something you would give, a piece of advice you would give to yourself, to the younger self, now that you know what you went through?
I would pay attention, get out earlier. If you see red flags around a situation, get out the minute you see them. Don't wait and think that things are going to improve, because they won't. If you find that if you find that you're in a lab and there's a particular high conflict individual that you're not getting on with or that you're tiptoeing around, it depends on very much on your personality, but I don't get on very well with that, because when the metaphorical shit hits the fan, sorry, recording, whoops, you're going to get covered in it. So A, get out if you see red flags, and B, just ask. That's the one thing, because I was brought up to, you wait to be asked, you wait to be invited to things, which meant that I never got fucking invited to anything. You know, it's not the way the world works. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I learned that during my undergraduate degree. And that is the one thing. If you don't ask, you don't get. And the worst thing anyone can possibly say to you is no. You know, that's literally it. If they can't do it, or they don't have the spoons or the capacity for it, then it's fine, you know. But if you don't ask, you definitely don't get. So if anyone wants any help, just ask me. I am more than happy to put you in contact with my network or make suggestions, anything like that. I can talk about this stuff till the cows come home. So but I won't today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get. So
I think that's something to stick to, because it works exactly as you say. And actually, it reminds me of something. I think it's called the sunken cost fallacy. So it's like, if you invested some amount of time into something and it's just bad, but you feel like I should finish it because I already invested the time, But if you stay in the situation, it will continue to be bad. It can continue for quite a while. So
yeah,
something to keep in mind.
You have to work out at what point you need to value yourself and your own mental health, because it's not healthy for you physically or mentally. I mean, when it got really bad, I was really quite sick. Looking back on it, I was incredibly ill with it all, with the stress. And I made one mistake and that was it, you know, and the consequences from a professional point of view were horrible. And I just wish I'd managed to recognize that situation earlier and leave earlier. I think I would have been a lot better. But having said that, I can now pass that. You guys don't have to go through it. You know, you can listen to folks like myself and other people who've been through it and learn from our mistakes. I mean, obviously it's one of these do as I say, not as I do sort of situation, because I had to learn from it, but I don't see why you have to suffer with academia. You know, it's hard enough at the best of times. You know, we should be lifting each other up, not shoving everyone down because we had a shit time, therefore you deserve to have a shit time.
I think that's an excellent message. Thank you very much for sharing.
Well, I see lots of questions in the chat. So,
all right, yeah. So one question I see popping up just now. Public engagement usually has an association with speaking to children. What are other aspects of PE people don't know about?
Oh my God, it's more than just that. It's one of these situations where people think that speaking to children is easy because they're kids. And it's like, it really isn't. It is a skill. Well, first of all, it's a skill to be able to distill something, not dumbing it down, categorically not dumbing it down, but refining a concept to the point that it could be understood by children. And I am constantly surprised by just how much they take in. I've taken a nano twister game that I created to a nursery and had the kids saying whether DNA was macro, micro, or nano scale, what was a blue whale, you know, and they were shouting it back. And the researcher I had alongside me was absolutely stunned that these 3 to 5 year olds were understanding this. So public engagement is so much more. It might be where you first start, you know, you might become a STEM ambassador, you might go out for a couple of school visits, but there's so much more to it because you've got communities of interest, you've got community, this is a bit of a jargon, to apologise, but you've got communities of interest. The public are not this great homogenous blob that you go and give your knowledge to and fill up empty cups. That's not what public engagement's about. It's about working out who might be interested in what you're doing, what you're researching, going and asking them, and ask your audience what they want to know, because you will be surprised, because you'll think, oh, if it's a school, they must want a workshop, but they may not want a workshop. They may want something else. They may want a bit of mentoring. You know, go and ask your audience what they want and then create what they want, or work in collaboration with them to co-create something. I mean, yeah, so you've got communities of interest. So you might have places that are interested in history. You might have things that are geographically linked. So when you've got communities of place, I love working with libraries, for example. The libraries are basically a community's living room, open to everyone, free to access, incredibly equitable places to work. Librarians are amazing people to work with. Run your events in libraries. You know, they've got a vested interest in getting feet through the door, because otherwise they're going to close if we don't use them. So go out and support them. Same for community groups. You know, there's so many different communities that you could work with. It's phenomenal. It's more than just kids talking to kids. That has its place, because you never know when you're going to have that one conversation that sparks a kid's interest in research or in science or any subject. But it's impossible to measure that. You can't track that from an evaluation point of view. But that's why I still go to science fairs and things like that, because you never know when you have those conversations.
Such a good message. This actually links me to one of the things I was quite curious about, and is the project which is called Sublock Science and Beyond the Walls. Could you tell us a bit more about that? That was huge amounts of fun. We had funding from the Wellcome Trust to fund project officers and a bit of transport and some consumables money for a couple of years. And essentially we ran 8-week blocks in collaboration with Fife College, who were the Learning Centre support providers, and Scottish Prison Service. And each week I would take a couple of researchers in to either HMP Lomos, which is just outside of Bishopbriggs, or HMP Shotts, which unsurprisingly is in Shotts. Two very different prisons in terms of style. So you tend to get
shorter term offenders in shots, long term offenders in, short term offenders tend to be in LOMOS, longer term prisoners tend to be in shots. But when they were in the education centre, they're just learners, you know, and we do exactly the same sort of things there that you would do with any adults, essentially. I mean, population in prison isn't that different in terms of educational level. You've got folks who didn't finish school, folks who've got 3 degrees, you know, and everyone in between. They're all male, the ones that I was working with, they're all male prisoners. And it was very interesting, the different responses that people had. So when I first went in, I remember coming out thinking, there but for the grace of God go any of us, you know, luck of birth, you know, where you grow up, you know, opportunities you've had. My colleague at St Andrews came out thinking they just want to learn, the desperate need for, you know, the curiosity, wanting to find out new things. And another colleague had a very anxious response because she couldn't tell what they'd done, which was, and you get a real mix of responses from folks who come in. And it's not something that's for everyone. I have had researchers who flat out said, no, not interested in working with prisoners, and that's fine. You know, you will find your flavour of public engagement that you like. Or several flavors. I, for example, tried Bright Club. I was rubbish at it. I'm not going back to do it again, but I'm glad I did it. So, and we also did work with the families as well. So I'd run sessions in the visitors centre where the prisoners came out and they were with their families, and we had hands-on activities. I was absolutely mobbed. It was fantastic. We ran a Harry Potter one where the owls pooed on the floor. Weirdly, I was allowed to take in owls, live owls, but I wasn't allowed to take in dry ice. I'm still not entirely sure what the security implications of dry ice are versus a live animal, but hey. So that was an interesting challenge, working out what you can get in, you know, what you're illegally allowed to take in. But we built up so much trust with the prison that they trusted that when we sent them our resources list in advance, they checked it, they trusted us to bring stuff in, which was huge in terms of making the project actually work. But these things don't happen fast.
Yeah.
You know, you build the relationships.
It's just amazing. It just feels like you found your niche, special thing that like barely anyone else would think about. You just went for it and made an impact. I absolutely love that.
It was nice. We've won a couple of awards for it, which is always nice. It's always nice to get shiny medals and things. We got a Herald Higher Education Award for partnership. That was cool. That was the last time I actually got to get dressed up, which was nice. And we also got top 10 public engagement projects in the world at the Falling Walls in Berlin. That was a recent thing.
I know that one. Wow, that's
that was
impressive.
Very cool.
It's impressive.
It's one of the things that's quite useful for getting attention from people. So my involvement with that meant that I ended up getting a Strathclyde medal. But that's an interesting one because I knew my contract was possibly coming to an end. So I thought, oh, you know what? Ask a couple of people to nominate me for something. And I got a medal, and it was amazing. And you know, the comments that people put when they nominate you, I mean, obviously they're not going to nominate you if they don't think you deserve it, but it was incredible to see what people had written. So if you see something that you think that you were qualified for and that you might get, ask someone to nominate you, or even nominate yourself. You know, like I said, worst thing they can say is no.
Yeah.
Best case scenario, you get a shiny medal.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the previous message. Just don't be afraid to ask for things in general.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing one more question from the audience. This one is from Alison. Do you have any tips for encouraging the higher ups to engage with outreach in an academic culture where there is a distinct hierarchy in ideas from the bottom tier and the ideas from the bottom tier are not always encouraged?
Yeah. It's challenging because even those who are at upper tiers within organizations who are engaged with engagement might also be getting pressure from those above them to not do it. The key I found is if you can get funding for it, it's worth, I mean, the Institute of Physics have a public engagement grant, relatively straightforward to apply for. I'm happy to provide any comments on the application if that would be useful. It's one of these things where if you get funding for it, it's seen as almost more acceptable because someone else is paying for it. Yeah, so applying for those sort of things. Obviously, we're coming to the end of a ref cycle, so they'll be less focused on ref as an output. I Other opportunities, it might be worth couching in terms of your personal development, because under the Research and Development Concordat, for those of you who don't know, there is actually a Research and Development Concordat. And in theory, PhD students and postdocs are meant to spend about 8 hours a week on your own personal development. That's beyond your research, that's on your professional development. Whether or not you get the chance to do that, yeah, in theory, you're meant to. And part of that could be, sorry, my train of thought got derailed. Applying for funding, or there is another thing which is actually a paid opportunity. I'm going to highlight, if you've not come across it, the Brilliant Club, ironically, is a brilliant way of working with schools. So basically it's a paid opportunity for you. You get a training weekend in pedagogy and how to do teaching. So if you're interested in getting some teaching experience, that's really, really useful. And essentially you deliver to 6 to 12 students, university style tutorials based around your research. So from a ref point of view, that's potentially refable. You also get £500 per term for your deliveries. So it's a paid opportunity for you as well. Unfortunately, an awful lot of public engagement opportunities aren't paid, and I am doing my best to make sure that when I offer opportunities myself, I'm either making sure they're paid internships or I'm finding some way of giving you money because this is a form of work and it should be recognized as such. Sorry, I'm getting on my soapbox here, but it should be recognized as such.
Absolutely.
And I get what you mean about, you know, the high hegians maybe not wanting you doing engagement. One thing you could come back with in terms of evidence, it's always worth going into this is good for anything, but it's always worth going to supervisors and PIs with solutions rather than problems. So if you go in and say, you know, give them ideas, give them options and let them pick, because then it makes it feel like it's their idea. But Strathclyde has signed up to something called the Knowledge Exchange Concordat. Now, it was voluntary for Scotland because it's currently running as a pilot in England, but it's all about universities basically putting forward and having their knowledge exchange plans evaluated by external evaluators. So I know that Strathclyde voluntarily signed up for that. And that will all be part of sort of Vision 2025. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that in terms of what their plans are. So if you can link into university strategy or contribute in some other fashion, then find the angle of how you can fit it in so it achieves objectives for your supervisors and your PIs, as well as achieving what you want to achieve.
Great suggestions. Thank you very much. We are running a bit tight on time here. So the final question I'm thinking about. How did you bump into the job at Strathclyde? You know, from a practical standpoint, what worked for you in this case? Was it somebody you knew, somebody from an extended network? Was it coincidence?
The job at Strathclyde, basically, I was unemployed for 2 months. I had an unemployment to sort of pay the bills, essentially. And what I ended up doing was a small piece of consultancy. So there was a company called MD Bioscience out at the West of Scotland Science Park. And because I had experience in, you know, animal models and things like that, I was able to get a little bit of work working with a particular imaging system that we had at Glasgow Uni, so in IVIS, and basically helping the company to run their models and image them in this particular system. We got a paper out of it, which was cool. And it was because of that connection that they thought of me when this grant at Strathclyde came up. So they actually approached me and asked me to submit my application for that particular role. Although when I'd first looked at it and looking back on it, it probably wasn't the best possible fit, because again, learning about what you like from a lab environment point of view is really important. So if you like working in a team, make sure you go to a lab that actually has a team.
Yeah, that's very good advice.
Yeah, but also I was unemployed and I needed to be paid. So there was a certain element of that to it.
I see. All right, so I think we can wrap up this block. Thank you very much, Kirsty. It was a very good presentation, excellent suggestions, excellent tips. Thank you so much for joining us.
I might sit and answer some of the questions in the chat.
That would be perfect. Okay. Thank you very much.